Very well, guys. So as mentioned on the previous video, we're going to be using Zspheres here inside of Zspheres. And before I show you how to do the armature, I just want to quickly go over how Zspheres work. So Zspheres are this very, I wouldn't say old, but it's another method in creating base meshes for our characters. So if you go over here and you click on Zsphere, you can draw one Zsphere and then press the letter T to go into edit mode. You can also go to the lightbox, and here on the projects, there's going to be a Zsphere right here. So whichever one you prefer to use, that's fine. We're just going to have our Zsphere available right here. I'm going to turn off dynamic perspective, and the way Zspheres work is they try to emulate the armature creation that we normally have in traditional clay sculpting. So if you're in a draw mode, which is letter Q, as you guys remember, which, by the way, let me turn on Karnak real quick. There we go. So when you have the letter Q, you can just click and drag, and that's going to create a new Zsphere on your object. You can, of course, turn on or off symmetry. As you can see, if symmetry is turned on and you go to the center, you're going to get that little green line that indicates that you're going to be creating a Zsphere on the center of your character. So just click, drag, and drop, and that's going to create a new sphere. You can click, drag, and drop again, and there we go. To eliminate one, you just need to press Alt and just click it, and that's going to eliminate one of the Zspheres. Now, the cool thing about the Zspheres is that, again, we can build chains of these Zspheres to generate a little base mesh, for instance, I don't know, like a gummy bear or something right here, that's going to allow us to sculpt something without having to just grab a sphere and move it around. Now, the way we see whether or not our Zsphere mesh is working nicely is by pressing the letter A. So if I press the letter A, I'm going to get a nice display of how this mesh is going to be generated once we jump into traditional Dynamesh. However, right now, we're not ready to do that. Now, if we press W, we're going to go to move, and the spheres are, as any 3D object, they can be moved around. So if I move this like this, for instance, or I push this up and I push this down, as you can see, we generate a new kind of armature that, again, we can preview by pressing the letter A. That's going to give us the generated mesh that we're going to have once we do Dynamesh, which looks quite nice. Now, as you probably saw right here, there might be a point where if you have two spheres really close to each other, you might get like this sort of like, there we go, like that gradient on the element. That's Zspheres telling you, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to like properly solve that part. If you press the letter A and you don't see any issues, then you're in good luck because you're not gonna have to do or change anything. However, if you see that and you press A and things look wrong, that's because the Zspheres are overlapping too close to each other. So you need to move them, you need to press E, for instance, to scale them even, and just modify the Zsphere so that you get a better result. Another cool thing about Zspheres is that once you have a chain of spheres like this one right here, you can press the letter Q again and add more Zspheres in between, and then use those to generate a slightly different like silhouette. So you can add or remove as many Zspheres as you want. Remember, to remove is on Q again, and then Alt and click to remove one Zsphere. So if you don't like the Zspheres, you just do this. Now, very important rule of thumb when working with Zspheres. Let's say I want to create more Zspheres down here. If I start drawing up here, and then I immediately jump and draw over here, sometimes a weird connection happens where this sphere thinks that it's somehow linked to this upper sphere. Right now it's not really happening, but it has happened to me sometimes and to a lot of my students. It's like a little bug that we have here inside of ZBrush. So the best rule of thumb is you draw a sphere and then you click outside of the box or outside of your object so that you have a clean mesh now, okay? So again, we draw a sphere, click outside, draw another sphere, click outside, and you can keep drawing anywhere you want. So imagine we had to create like a caterpillar or like an octopus or something like that. We can use Zspheres to create the very basic base mesh and then jump into Dynamesh to generate the final object. Okay, I'm gonna just go to Lightbox. I'm gonna start over from the very beginning, and I'm gonna show you now how to create an armature for our character right here. So I'm gonna bring my pure ref file right around here. I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to say mode. I'm going to remove always on top. So now when I click on ZBrush, the pure ref file is of course going to go to the backside. And then we can go up here to the see-through option and we can bring the see-through a little bit up so that we can see the silhouette of the character. I'm going to turn off dynamic perspective, and over here what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of the character right there. So the core, the abdomen of the character. With my letter Q, I'm going to draw the chest, which is going to be a sphere that's going to be here on the top. You can press a shift to snap the scale of your object to the same as the last sphere, like the mother sphere. So if I just drag and drop, I can go any size I want. But if I want to have the exact same size, I can start drawing and then press a shift to snap it. And then I'm going to do one more down here, which is going to be like the hips, as you can see right there. Of course, this one right here, which is the chest area, I'm going to scale. I'm going to press the letter E to scale. Just click on this, and I'm going to scale it up a little bit. I might even press the letter W and move it up a little bit so that we match most of the model. Now, you don't want to really capture all the muscles. We want to capture like the inside of the structure, the main volumes of the character. Now I'm going to press the letter Q again. I'm going to go to the side, and we're going to draw one like shoulder right there. Quite big, because this guy is quite big. So something like this. Now, when we see it from the side, this is very important. The human body is usually like placed in a way that there's a balance going between the different shapes. So the chest is usually tilted back, and the pelvis is usually tilted forward. So in this case, we're going to change that by moving this thing back like this, and this guy like this. See, that's just kind of like a little bean that we have right here. Now I'm going to press a Q again, and I'm going to draw another sphere for the arms. And with W, I'm going to move the arms right down there. I'm going to press E to scale them. I'm going to scale them down because they're not as thick. And then with Q, I'm going to add one sphere right there on the center. Usually, when we see the arms from the side, the forearm is actually pushing a little bit forward, like this. The arm is usually very straight, so we're going to keep it really straight right there. And this is where the forearm is going to be. Of course, we're missing the hand. I'm just going to add one more sphere for the hand. And the hand is usually like this, a little bit relaxed as well. It's usually facing inwards, something like that. And again, as you can see, the main idea right now is to capture most of the volume, but we're not worried about the muscles because we're going to be doing the muscles ourselves. I'm going to press the letter E to scale this a little bit more so that we can build the muscles a little bit better later. So there we go. On the top part, I'm going to draw another sphere. This is going to be the neck. And then I'm going to draw another sphere, which is going to be the head. Again, if we try to match this as close as possible, I should be able to push the head up and just give it a little bit more size right now. Something like this. We're going to remove and modify the head again so that we have our 9 heads as we had originally on our concept. So there you go. I do think he's a little bit wider, so I'm going to push this guy out a little bit more like this. And now I'm going to go to the legs. I'm going to add 2 on the side right here, which are like the hips. Okay, you can see the proportions there matching quite nicely. And then from the hips, we're going to go all the way down to the fingers. Careful there. Let's go to the front view. And again, just keep the legs like separated a little bit. You can see here that it's a little bit too further back. So with W, I'm just going to move them forward. I'm going to add 1 with Q right there on where the knee would be. And then I'm going to add 2 little ones right here, which are going to like represent the feet. We're going to change the feet and the hands later on. Right now, it's just a very, very basic like construction of what we want. I do think the hand's a little bit big, so I'm going to go to scale and just make it a little bit smaller. That way he's going to look way, way bigger. Now, I know I mentioned that we don't want to like capture the muscles, but I do want to capture a little bit of the volume of what the muscles represent. So for instance, here on the legs, I'm going to add another one right here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, representing the quad muscles right around there. And I'm going to add another one right here, make it bigger and push it back with W to generate what would be the ankles. The calf muscles. I'm going to do the E here to scale this up. And as you can see, we get a really, really nice proportion of how the character is supposed to look. Usually, you want the lower legs and the forearms to be slightly longer than the arms and the upper legs. So I'm going to grab my knees here and just going to push them a little bit up. Just a tad bit, not too much. On the upper side, things look good. So yeah, there you go. Let's get rid of the see-through for just a second. And if we press the letter A, as you can see, we're going to get this very nice sort of like a gumball, or is it gumball? What was the name of that little guy? We get this just like very basic clay element. That's going to be a great, again, starting point, a great base mesh so that we can start adding the forms, the proportions, and all of the things that we need. So the next thing that we need to do here is save this. So I'm going to save this. Let's go to our main project right here. And one of the reasons why it's important to save, imagine again we're doing a game and maybe there's like 3 or 4 demons that are very similar to this guy. Then one of the things that we could do is we could save this so that anytime we need to start a new one, we don't have to start from scratch. So I'm going to save this in C Tools. And this is going to be called Oni Zsphere Start. So if you guys are having issues with the Zspheres, you can always go to this one and start right here. Now there's a couple of things I want to do. Usually when we sculpt a character, we want to have a pose that allows us to work on all of the areas without like overlapping too much. Later on, we're going to pose the character so that he fits and looks exactly like he does in the concept. But right now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to push the arms out a little bit. There are two poses usually. A T pose, which is straight like this, and then there's A pose or B pose, which is like this, like a 45-degree angle. However, since this guy is really, really bulky, I'm actually going to go a little bit higher than 45 degrees so that we can work on the armpit and on the inside of the arms. So I'm going to go to this sphere right here. I'm going to press the letter R. And what you can do is you can actually click on the bone, which is this little triangle right here, and use that bone to rotate the object. So we can rotate this up like this, and that way we're going to have enough room to work on the inside of the arm right there. I'm going to bring the head back a little bit and even the neck back a little bit. There's a lot of adjustments that we're going to have to do very, very soon. But right now, the more we can, or the closer we can get to the concept, the easier our work is going to be once we start like generating all of the different elements. So yeah, for the legs, again, some people like to work with very straight legs. When I'm sculpting, I also like to split the legs a little bit more. So I'm going to go to the hips, and with R, I'm also going to move this out just a tad bit. Later on, we're going to bring them back so that it looks like he's standing a little bit better. But this is going to allow us to work on this inner side of the legs with way more precision. So this is our new like C-sphere. Again, I'm just going to save this real quick so that we have the basics. And that's pretty much it. The next thing we need to do to make this into a usable base mesh that we can start sculpting in, because a very, very common mistake, people will just press the letter A and they think that they're ready to start working and they'll just start working and sculpting. No, you need to convert this into a usable mesh. So go out of C-sphere, make it a mesh, and then you can start working on it. So for this particular character, I'm going to go to this side right here, and I'm going to go to where it says adaptive skin. As you can see, this is the preview that we've been turning on and on, the adaptive skin. We have a density of 5, a Dynamesh resolution of 256. I think it's a little bit high, to be honest, so I'm going to bring this down to 128. And if we preview, it should give us a little bit less points, so around 1,000 or 100,000 points. And yeah, once we're ready, we just say make adaptive skin. And what's going to happen is over here on the subtool menu or the tool menu, we're going to get a new tool called Skin Oni C-Sphere. I'm going to go here and I'm going to change the name. I'm going to rename this. Let's just name it Skin Oni. We don't need a whole like a C-Sphere subtitle. And that's it. We're going to save this and we're going to call this Oni Start. So if you already have the C-Spheres and you just want to jump straight into the character, this is another one of the tools that you're going to be able to use. Once we have this, now we're ready to jump and start working on the general proportions of the character, the general shape of the face, the general, like, again, silhouette of the character, not worrying about the muscles. We're going to have whole chapters dedicated to the anatomy and how to properly construct it. So make sure to get to this point, my friend, and I'll be seeing you back on the next video.